There is a moment you may have felt it when you step outside on a quiet morning, start walking, and something in your body just settles. Not dramatically, not all at once, but somewhere between the first 100 steps and the next, a kind of quiet ease moves through you. Your breathing finds a rhythm, your thoughts slow down, your shoulders drop slightly, and for a few minutes, you feel more like yourself than you did sitting still. Most people assume that feeling is just fresh air and a change of scenery. It isn't. What you are feeling in that moment is your body recognizing something. A movement pattern so deeply encoded into your biology, so ancient, so familiar, so expected that the moment it begins, dozens of systems inside you respond simultaneously. Not because walking is stimulating them, but because their absence, during the hours you spent sitting, was the unusual state. Walking, to your body, is not exercise, it is the return to normal. And that distinction changes everything. Go back 2 million years. Your ancestors didn't exercise. They moved because the world required it. Every day, a human life meant covering ground, finding food, following water, moving through seasons and terrain that never stayed the same. The distances were real, the duration was long, and the pace, almost always, was walking. Not sprinting, not lifting heavy objects repeatedly. Walking, sustained, rhythmic, moderate, daily walking for the entire span of a human life. Your skeleton was shaped around this. The curve of your lumbar spine, the angle of your hip joint, the depth of your foot arch, the length of your Achilles tendon, these are not coincidences of anatomy. They are precise adaptations to a life built around bipedal walking. Even the way your arms swing opposite to your legs is a specifically human feature, a counterbalance that makes your walking gait the most energy-efficient form of locomotion relative to body size of any animal on Earth. Your body was not designed to occasionally walk. It was designed around walking as a constant. And here's what that means for everything happening inside you right now. Every major biological system in your body, your cardiovascular system, your lymphatic system, your immune function, your brain chemistry, your hormonal balance, your metabolic efficiency, your digestive rhythm has walking built into its operating assumptions. These systems were calibrated over millions of years to function alongside daily movement. They expect it. They depend on it. And when it's absent, they don't simply pause and wait. They quietly shift into a different mode, a holding pattern that, sustained over years, drifts further and further from the conditions they were designed to operate in. This is rarely explained, not because it's complicated, but because it reframes something so ordinary that most people have stopped seeing it clearly. Walking isn't what you do when you can't do real exercise. Walking is the exercise your body was actually built for. Every other form of physical training your body can adapt to running, lifting, cycling, swimming is a modern imposition on a biological system designed around something much simpler. Your body can handle those things. It can adapt to them remarkably well, but it doesn't expect them the way it expects walking. It doesn't run its baseline maintenance processes around them. It treats them as events, challenges to respond to, recover from, adapt around. Walking it treats as home, and when you understand that, the question stops being, is walking enough? And becomes something far more interesting. What exactly happens inside my body when I walk consistently? And what am I missing when I don't? Most people never ask that question. They assume they already know the answer. A few calories burned, some cardiovascular benefit, nothing remarkable. What the research actually shows is something far more systemic, far more specific, and far more remarkable than most people have ever been told. And what happens next is fascinating. Have you ever noticed that after a few weeks of walking regularly, something shifts that you can't quite attribute to fitness? Your mood is a little more stable, your sleep is a little deeper, your thinking feels a little clearer. Something settles in your body that wasn't there before, and that disappears surprisingly quickly when the walking stops. Have you felt that shift? Tell me in the comments, I read every one. And if you enjoy understanding the quiet science happening inside your body, consider subscribing. If this is already making something click, tap the like button. It helps more people find this. Inside your cellular factories, something happens within the first few minutes of walking that most people never think about, and that has nothing to do with fitness or calorie burning. Your lymphatic system wakes up. Most people know about the cardiovascular system, blood, heart, vessels, circulation, but running parallel to it, woven through every tissue in your body, is another fluid system that most people never think about until something goes wrong with it. The lymphatic system is a vast network of vessels that carry a fluid called lymph, a mixture of immune cells, waste products, proteins, and cellular debris away from your tissues and back toward your bloodstream for processing. It is, in effect, your body's waste removal and immune patrol system combined into one. And it has one critical difference from the cardiovascular system. It has no pump. Your heart beats 100,000 times a day, pushing blood continuously through your body. Your lymphatic system has no equivalent. It moves entirely through external pressure, the compression and release created by muscle contraction and body movement. When your muscles contract with each step you take, they squeeze the lymphatic vessels running through them, pushing lymph forward. When they relax, the vessels refill. Step after step, this gentle pumping action keeps lymph moving throughout your entire body. When you sit still for hours, lymphatic flow slows dramatically. Immune cells don't circulate efficiently. Cellular waste accumulates in tissues. Fluid can pool in the lower extremities. You might not feel this directly in the early stages, but your body notices it immediately in the form of subtle stiffness, a heaviness in the legs, a slight mental fogginess, a reduced immune responsiveness that you'd never think to connect to sitting. 20 minutes of walking restores lymphatic circulation more effectively than anything else available to you. Not a massage, not compression garments, not supplements. Walking, because walking is exactly what the lymphatic system was designed to work alongside. This is one reason, not the only reason, but one of the clearest ones why people who walk regularly tend to have stronger immune responses, recover from illness faster, and experience lower levels of systemic inflammation than those who don't. Their immune cells are moving, patrolling, reaching tissues, doing what they were designed to do. A still body is an immune system stuck waiting. A walking body is that same system fully operational. Now consider what walking does to your brain, because this is where the research becomes genuinely remarkable. Within minutes of beginning a walk, your brain increases production of a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. If you've never heard of it, here is what you need to know. BDNF is the primary signal your brain uses to grow new neurons, strengthen connections between existing ones, and protect brain cells from deterioration and age-related decline. Researchers who study it sometimes call it fertilizer for the brain, not because the analogy is poetic, but because it is functionally accurate. And walking is one of the most reliable, consistent triggers for BDNF production that researchers have identified. Not high-intensity exercise, which can actually suppress BDNF when the body interprets the effort as excessive stress. Not sitting. Not passive rest. Walking at the gentle, sustainable intensity that your brain reads as normal rather than threatening produces a steady, sustained increase in BDNF that continues throughout the walk and for a period afterward. The hippocampus, the brain region most directly involved in memory formation, spatial awareness, and emotional regulation, physically increases in volume in people who walk regularly. This was first observed in animal research, then confirmed in human studies, and has now been replicated across multiple populations and age groups. The brains of regular walkers look measurably different from the brains of sedentary people, not in some abstract functional sense, but in actual physical structure. Think about that for a moment. A daily walk doesn't just make you feel mentally better. It literally grows your brain. Let me give you a simple picture of why all of this happens so completely from something as gentle as walking. Imagine your body as a large, complex factory one, with dozens of departments, each with its own equipment, its own processes, its own output. Now imagine that factory was designed to run continuously with a specific level of baseline activity, keeping every department ticking over. The ventilation system, the conveyor belts, the cleaning crews that move through overnight, the quality checks that happen between shifts. When the factory runs as designed, all of these background processes happen automatically. Waste is cleared. Equipment stays calibrated. Departments communicate. The building works. But now imagine the factory goes into a kind of standby mode for most of each day. The conveyor belts slow. The cleaning crews don't come through. The ventilation drops to minimum. Nothing catastrophically breaks. But over time, dust accumulates in places it shouldn't. Calibration drifts. Communication between departments becomes slower and less reliable. That standby mode is what prolonged sitting does to your body. And walking is simply running the factory under its design conditions again. Not at maximum capacity, not under stress. Just at the normal, expected baseline that allows every background process to function the way it was meant to. Scientists spent most of the last century convinced that exercise benefits scaled directly with intensity. Work harder, gain more. A run was better than a walk. An interval session was better than a run. The logic seemed obvious. More effort, more adaptation, more result. The research of the past 2 decades has quietly and thoroughly complicated that picture. A landmark study following more than 33,000 runners and 15,000 walkers over 6 years found that when energy expenditure was matched, when walkers burned the same total calories as runners, simply over a longer duration. Walking produced equal or greater reductions in risk for cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and type 2 diabetes. Not marginally equal. Comparable or superior across nearly every metabolic and cardiovascular marker studied. The exercise science community found this surprising. They perhaps shouldn't have. Running is, from your body's perspective, a controlled emergency. Every foot strike generates impact, forces 2 to 3 times your body weight. Your heart rate surges. Cortisol rises sharply. Inflammatory signaling increases. Your body activates stress and repair pathways that, in a well-recovered body, produce useful adaptations. But these are not maintenance pathways. They are emergency response pathways. And emergency response pathways were never designed to be activated daily, indefinitely, for decades. Walking activates none of those stress responses. Your cortisol stays low. Your inflammatory markers remain stable. Your heart rate rises gently and sustainably. And in that calm, low-stress state, your body activates something different, the maintenance and optimization pathways that only open when your body isn't busy managing a stress event. These are the pathways that balance hormones, that consolidate memories, that calibrate immune function, that optimize mitochondrial efficiency, that regulate blood sugar smoothly, that keep visceral fat, the deep abdominal fat most strongly associated with long-term health risk, from accumulating. On that last point, the evidence is particularly consistent. Walking, despite burning fewer calories per minute than more intense exercise, is one of the most effective interventions researchers have found for reducing visceral fat specifically. The reason is hormonal. Visceral fat is most responsive to a combination of low insulin, low cortisol, and gently elevated fat-releasing hormones, a combination that walking produces cleanly and maintains throughout the entire duration of movement. High-intensity exercise, which elevates cortisol significantly, disrupts that combination. It burns calories. But it doesn't create the hormonal environment that visceral fat is most willing to respond to. Walking does. A 2019 study published in JAMA Internal Medicine found that women who walked approximately 7,500 steps per day had significantly lower mortality rates than those walking 4,000 steps, and that benefits plateaued around that threshold, with no additional mortality reduction from walking more. Not from running, not from gym training, from roughly 60 to 75 minutes of daily walking. The movement your biology was built around, performed at the intensity it was built around, for the duration it was built around. Your body doesn't need to be pushed beyond its limits to function well. It needs to be returned to its baseline. And its baseline is walking. A few things are worth knowing before you begin building this into your life. If you have been largely sedentary for an extended period, start with 15 to 20-minute sessions and let the first 2 weeks simply be about consistency. Your body begins responding from the very first walk. Lymphatic circulation improves, BDNF rises, insulin sensitivity starts to shift, but the deeper adaptations require weeks of repetition. Let them build. If you have joint discomfort, particularly in the knees or hips, walk on softer surfaces where possible, grass, packed earth, or rubberized tracks, rather than concrete. The cumulative impact of hard surfaces over long distances adds up. Comfortable footwear that allows your foot to move naturally is more important than most people realize. Avoid heavily cushioned shoes that reduce sensory feedback from the ground. Your foot's ability to feel and respond to the surface beneath it is part of how your body maintains joint alignment during walking. If you have cardiovascular conditions or significant metabolic concerns, a brief conversation with your doctor before making changes to your movement routine is sensible. Not because walking carries meaningful risk for most people it doesn't, but because knowing your baseline helps you recognize and appreciate the changes that follow. And listen to your body throughout. Walking regularly makes you more attuned to your body's signals, not less. That attunement is itself part of the benefit. Here is what I want you to take away. For 2 million years, walking was not something humans chose to do for their health. It was simply what being alive required. And in that continuous, daily, expected movement, every system in the human body found its rhythm. The lymphatic system circulated. The brain grew. The metabolism ran cleanly. The heart worked efficiently. The hormones balanced. The immune system patrolled. That rhythm hasn't changed. Your body still expects it, still responds to it, still organizes its most fundamental maintenance processes around it. The only thing that changed is that the modern world removed the requirement. And in doing so, it quietly removed the baseline condition that billions of years of biology had built your body to depend on. Walking is not a gentle alternative to real exercise. It is the original. The one your body knows completely, responds to most fully, and benefits from most deeply, not because it is hard, but because it is exactly, precisely what you were built to do. What surprised you most in this video? The lymphatic system? The brain changes? The comparison with running? Or something else? Tell me in the comments. If you enjoy discovering the quiet science happening inside your body, subscribe for more. New videos every week. In the next video, we'll explore something even more fascinating. What happens inside your body during the first 10 minutes of a walk, minute by minute, and why that opening window may be the most biologically important part of the entire experience. Your body is not failing you. It has been waiting for the right information. Now you have it.